the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show. I hope everybody is having a fantastic week. And yeah, we're back on a regular schedule. Don't forget, tonight at 7 p.m. East Coast time, we've got Greg Salmieri, professor, philosopher Greg Salmieri from the University of Texas. We'll be on. We'll be talking about free speech. But open Q&A, you guys get to ask him anything you want. So bring it on. Any philosophical questions, any other questions you have for him, anything that you think I didn't answer well or didn't answer at all, or said, ask the philosopher, don't ask me. Here's your chance. So bring all those questions tonight, 7 p.m. East Coast time. On Monday, we've got Robert D. Mayhew, another philosopher, expert on ancient philosophy. We'll be talking to Robert on Monday. And then the following Monday, back by popular demand, we have Gene Binswanger. So we've got Gene coming the following Monday. So problems with sound is off? No? People can hear me? All right. So anyway, a string of interviews, and this is all before I start traveling. Let's see, what else do we want to do? I'll give you an update. I told you yesterday I was working on sleep and trying to get this wedge and maybe figure out how to sleep better. It didn't work. It was a disaster last night, complete disaster. It's worst sleep I've had since the surgery, most pain I've had since the surgery. It just didn't work. No pain during the day, no pain standing up, but definitely sleep is number one issue I'm having with this shoulder surgery. Anyway, I'll keep trying, keep working on it, and keep trying to find the right angle, find the right combination of things that gets me the most sleep, or the most pain-free sleep is the key. I do have, I got my doctor next week, and I've also got a physical therapy appointment. So I'm rolling. We're working, we're moving, all good. I'm just tired. All right, what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about elections. I know. But yeah, it's elections. It's like coming up. It's like in a few weeks, and then it's over. And then we'll talk about why they won't concede, or why the cities are burning, or why there's violence in the streets, or why this or that person got elected, and what the consequences are going to be. Unfortunately, we're stuck with this, with these choices for a long time. But yeah, for now, we've got 20 days, less than 20 days, to figure out who the next president of the United States is going to be, or to figure out who you're going to vote for president in the United States. So far, it seems pretty clear that at least if you look at the polls and you look at the models that are based on the polls, it's a toss-up. It's been a toss-up for a long time. It's still a toss-up. If you look at Nate Silver's election model, I still think probably the best from an econometric perspective, just from a statistical modeling perspective. He has Trump at 49.7% chance of victory and Harris at 50.1%, which basically is 50-50. It's meaningless. It's a complete toss-up. You can flip a coin at this point. Now, one of them will win and one of them will lose, right? So reality is not a coin flip, but the expectation could be a coin flip. There's an interesting epistemological issue there, but yeah. Anyway, betting markets are a little bit better. Betting markets are a little bit better because people are putting their money where their mouth is. It doesn't mean they know more. It doesn't actually mean they have more expertise. It doesn't mean they're going to be right. It doesn't mean much. But betting markets shifted towards Trump about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And Trump is favored in the betting markets. Again, not a huge percentage. It's like Trump is favored to win the election. It's something like 56 to 44, 55 to 45, something like that, right? But that's pretty close to 50-50. It's pretty close to coin flip. So, again, these are the probability of a particular outcome happening in the future. And 55 to 45 is pretty, it's not even 2 to 1. It's yeah. One of Freeman says today's odds are better for Trump, maybe, I guess. I mean, would be my guess. It's been moving in those direction. So just give us the odds. Don't, Wonder Freeman is kind of playing games here. Just give us what the odds are in betting markets right now. Maybe it's 60-40. I've been saying for a while now, I do think Trump's going to win this. I don't like that outcome. I think it's 55 to 45 is not big in politics, not when you're looking at odds. It's 55 Trump, 41 Kamala, and 9% 58%, 41 Kamala. That makes more sense. Okay, so as I said, Trump is gaining, but 55-45 is not big in politics. 55-45 in terms of an outcome is big in politics. 55-45 in terms of a poll is a big gap in a poll. But that is epistemologically, statistically, and materially different than saying the odds of this winning or that winning is 60 to 40. That is very different than saying the poll shows 60 to 40. If it's 60-40 poll, the 60's won. I mean, it's almost impossible for it to flip. If it's 55-45 in a poll, that's a huge lead. But 55-45 in terms of the probability of victory is a completely different question. I'm glad this came up. One of them says Nevada moved into the R column overnight. Yeah, I mean, I think a poll came out, and a lot of these are weighted by any particular poll that comes out in terms of which way they're going to sway. But again, 55-45, Ryan says, McGovern got worse than that. That's not a prediction of the outcome. How do I make this clear? It's not that what the markets are saying is it's likely that Trump will get 55 and that Harris will get 45. That's not what that is saying. What the betting markets are saying, and what Silver's model is saying, is that the likelihood of victory, even if that victory is 1/10 of 1%, is 55 versus 45. That is a completely different point. I have no idea, and neither do you, I suspect, what McGovern's odds of winning were 3 weeks before the election. Not the percentage of the vote he would get. Very different. Percentage vote you will get is very different than the probability of winning or not winning. There has to be a better way for me to explain this, but statistics is difficult. It really is objectively difficult, at least for me, and not easy to explain. So I'll have to think. In other words, here's my excuse. I need to think about an explanation. I don't have it readily available. All right. So please pay attention to what we're going. Now, again, it looks like Trump is going to win. It also looks like Republicans will win this Senate. So the hope for divided government is the House. What can I say? Yeah, if you're voting in a House election, and it's close, vote for a Democrat. Because we want divided government. I want divided government. I don't know what you want. I want divided government. I do not want to give Trump all three levers of power. I do not want to give a Democrat all three levers of power. I want divided government. The House flipping to Democrat will be fine. Again, I do think the Senate will either go 50-50, which if Trump wins, it means it's a Republican. If Kamala wins, it means it'll be Democratic. But it's probably going to be 51-49 in favor of Republicans, and that gives them veto power of what a Democrat does, and that is good. Ryan says Nadal can be 45% chance of beating Federer and still win. Yes, but it's worse than that. Nadal can be at 10%. So you can look at Nadal and Djokovic and say, given the court, given the previous games that they've played, given how exhausted they look, given their schedule, given their age, given who they've won against recently, I think Nadal only has a 10% chance of winning. And he could still win. I mean, people have had 1% of winning, and they can still win, right? So the fact that you give something a probability does not mean that the higher number is the number that's actually going to occur. The reason you give it a probability is because there's uncertainty, because you don't know who's going to win. There's uncertainty about who's going to win. Now, if I'm playing Nadal, then the probability of me winning is literally 0. There's no 45-55. It's 0-100. We know who's going to win. Now, we don't know exactly what the score is going to be by how much I'm going to win, but we know I'm going to win. And that's what the probability of victory represents. So you get a probability of victory of 1% sometimes. And underdogs come back and somehow win in spite of everything. Now, in politics, because there's so much polling, because there's so much effort goes into trying to predict the outcome, you're not going to get 100-1 odds of winning. But in horse racing, once in a while, it happens. But probably not in politics. All right, enough statistics. Anyway, we were saying I mean, my idea would be Democrat president, Republican House and Senate. That's my ideal. Second best is Republican president, Democratic House or Senate, or both, or one of those. Right? Those are acceptable scenarios. Almost every other scenario is really not that acceptable. All right, so with the stretch, we're right at the end here, and Trump and Kamala pulling out all the stops and trying to woo the electorate, or particularly those voters who are still wooable, and maybe those voters who have voted for your party, but are not likely to vote for you, this time. In the case of Trump this time, Trump is doing well. I mean, he's way exceeding expectations with black men and Hispanic men, but Hispanics generally, but certainly black men. I think in the past it's been 90+% Democratic, and this time it's looking like only 70% going the Democrats' way and Trump capturing the rest. Where Trump is doing badly, relatively speaking, right? Where Trump is doing really, really badly from a historical perspective is with white women. White women voted for him over Hillary Clinton by 6 points. White women voted for him over Joe Biden by 7 points. And right now, white women, are voting. It's basically tied. It may be a little bit edge to Trump, but basically tied. And I think that has to do with reproductive rights. It has to do with abortion and Roe versus Wade and the court's overturning of Roe versus Wade. It has to do with the fact that I think justifiably Republicans have portrayed as and seem like they are anti women reproductive rights, whether it's even some Republicans in the Senate and House, and I wouldn't put this past J.D. Vance, doubting contraception, and we of course heard there was the case was in Alabama, I think, about IVF and all kinds of other things. Women just don't trust the Republicans, and they shouldn't. So good for them. You shouldn't trust Republicans if you're a woman, because you don't know. I mean, Trump is moderate on abortion, but he still appointed people who basically, even though they said in the hearings that they wouldn't overturn or unlikely to overturn Roe, that they supported precedent and all this stuff, as soon as they had a chance, they overturned it like that. So yes, women do not trust, and as a consequence, you've got a huge gap. So Trump is doing a town hall in Georgia, I think today, maybe tomorrow, on quote, issues impacting women ahead of the election. I mean, it should be an interesting town hall, right? Here's a guy who, is being tried for sexually abusing women, found guilty, and has talked about women in the most debasing, horrible way imaginable, but still got their vote in 2016 and 2020, and this year not. So it's not about his personality. His personality hasn't changed. It's just as debased as it ever was. It's about abortion, and this is particularly true if you look at young women. Young women, they will always lean Democratic, but they're leaning Democratic in far greater numbers than ever before, as a consequence of overturning Roe versus Wade. So that's a demographic Trump is trying to go after, trying to reestablish his dominance within that demographic. Hard to tell how he's going to do it. It's very late in the election, but again, the momentum's on his side. We'll get to Kamala in a minute. A lot of interviews. They're both doing a lot of interviews. You can scan like the website. I mean, Trump is turning down a lot of stuff. He doesn't want a second debate. He doesn't want a 60-minute interview. But he is doing a lot of other interviews, and he's going on a lot of podcasts. Kamala is going on podcasts too. Both of them are trying to get on Joe Rogan. It's... and in the interviews, like yesterday or the day before, we had an interview Trump did with chief editor Bloomberg. So a lot of the interviews have turned on Trump's economic policies, if you can call them that. And, this is where typically, we would say, all right, we're going to hold our nose, and in spite of everything, we're going to vote Republican because from an economic perspective, they're just better, they're less statist, and they're more pro markets or business, and so they're not perfect, they're far from perfect, they're not even good, but they're just a lot better than the Democrats on these economic issues, so we're going to vote for them. And the reality is, the more Trump talks about economics, the more Trump defends his economic plans for America, the more it becomes clear how, well, it's not an issue of clarity, because it's always been clear. The more it's evident how completely and utterly ignorant the guy is of economics, and how stupid he is about economics, and how he doesn't really care about economics, and and how disastrous. And I say this fully aware of how disastrous Kamala Harris's economic plans would be, how disastrous Trump's economic policies would be, far beyond anything Kamala could do. And a large part of it is that a lot of what Trump wants to do, really the keystones of his program, is things that a president can actually do unilaterally. Kamala can talk about wanting to tax unrealized capital gains, which would be an unmitigated disaster, but she can't do it. Not as long as Republicans, Democrats don't hold 60 seats in the Senate. You just can't do it. It's not going to pass. You've got to get the Senate involved. You've got to get Parliament involved, because that's how tax policy and other things are determined, but not when it comes to two crucial issues. There are two crucial issues that are fundamental to this election, and where the President of the United States can unilaterally make decisions that is going to be very, 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 very difficult for Congress or for the courts to stop him. And those two issues are immigration and tariffs. So after Smoot-Hawley was passed, this is Smoot-Hawley in 1930, was passed, which basically layered a bunch of tariffs on goods coming into the United States and launched a trade war with the rest of the world, and ultimately dramatically deepened the Great Depression and made it much, much harder to get out of the Great Depression. In the long run, was a real catalyst for the destruction of American jobs and of economic activity in the United States. This is 1930 under Hoover. Anyway, it became evident that Smoot-Hawley was passed. So before Smoot-Hawley, let me backtrack a little bit. Before Smoot-Hawley, basically tariffs were Congress. I mean, it's actually pretty explicit in our Constitution. Our Constitution pretty much lays out that Congress is responsible for tariffs. Under Article 1, Section 8, the legislative branch has the sole power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, and to regulate commerce with foreign countries. And what happened with Smoot-Hawley is Smoot-Hawley was a bill that Congress wanted. It was a bill constructed around special interest groups or pressure groups of all kinds of localities in the United States. We want to protect steel. We want to protect industry. We want to protect agriculture. We want to protect this other thing. And Smoot-Hawley was a conglomeration of all these pressure groups, all these little groups, and all the protectionist tariffs that they wanted in order to protect their little industries as the economy is plunging, into a great recession. And of course, this was a devastating blow that among other things that Hoover did that actually cemented it in the Great Depression. But it was like, while Hoover supported this bill, it was Congress. So in 1934, Congress got together. This is the days when Congress actually had a little bit of introspection. And in 1934, Congress went back and said, look, we need to take this power away from ourselves because we're not very objective about this. We can't really control ourselves. We have local interests that we have to feed. And as a consequence, we're not good at this. So what we want to do is we are going to give the president, under his, foreign affairs responsibilities, under Article 2 of the Constitution, we're going to give him power to set trade policy, including tariffs, and take it away from ourselves because we know we're really, 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 really bad at it. Same thing, by the way, was done about immigration. So they gave it to the president. And for more than 80 years, that's worked pretty well. And the reason I gave it to the president, I thought the president is not beholden to any particular constituency. He's beholden to the country. Tariffs are bad. He will see that. He will generally lean towards protecting the interests of the country as a whole and moving us towards fewer tariffs. And that's what happened. For 80 years. For 80 years. The United States avoided major tariff hikes. Major trade wars were avoided. And gradually, even if inconsistently, the United States liberalized trade and entered into international agreements, which the president negotiated and Congress approved, and generally made it possible for global trade to boom, to flourish, to be extraordinary. I mean, the system's far from perfect. Too many trade barriers still exist. But even in the case of China, trade barriers have come down dramatically in response to trade barriers coming down in the United States. And generally around the world, trade barriers have come down. Donald Trump is the first president dedicated as his number one agenda item to reversing this. By the way, there's an excellent article by Scott Linscomb on his Substack, which I highly recommend, about this issue of constitutionality of who raises tariffs and so on. You can check that out on his Substack or on the Dispatch. But anyway, Trump actually can impose tariffs. And people have now done a lot of work on looking at the economic consequences of raising tariffs, taking Trump at his words. And it's pretty devastating. It is the number one proposal that is most economically devastating of all the proposals that either political candidate has put forward. So, pretty bad stuff. Pretty bad stuff. And one of the things about tariffs is that it shows how stupid he is. I think that's a technical term. He's just an idiot. He has an economic understanding of economics of a 5-year-old. Literally a 5-year-old. Now, it's not just that he's clueless about trade. He's clueless about the dollar. He's clueless about how the dollar works. So, for example, he is out there on the road, pounding the pavement, saying, as his economic policy, he wants to eliminate the trade deficit. Trade deficits are bad. We're losing. Other countries are winning and we're losing, right? So he wants to eliminate the trade deficit. And at the same time, he is going to punish any country that does not use the dollar as its reserve currency. So he wants to strengthen the dollar as the global reserve currency and eliminate the trade deficit. Now, we don't have time, and I don't have a whiteboard behind me to explain to you, but it's not that hard, that those two don't go together. Indeed, the reason we have a trade deficit, the reason we import a lot more than we export, is because foreigners want dollars. I did a bunch of shows on this the first time Trump was president, and I thought we got rid of this topic once he was out, but the economic ignorance is just as big today as it ever was. Foreigners want dollars. They want dollars because the dollar, they like using dollars. They like using dollars as a reserve currency. They want to invest in dollars. They want to trade in dollars. They want to hold their savings in dollars. It's a relatively speaking stable currency. In order to get dollars, what must they do? How do you get dollars? The only way to get dollars is to sell stuff to Americans, and they send you dollars. Now, you could use those dollars to buy stuff from America. And you do, some of the money you spend on buying stuff from America. But the main purpose of selling stuff to Americans is you want those dollars so you can save, you can invest using dollars. So if you want the dollar to stay the global reserve currency, that is for people to use it for trade, you need to provide the world with dollars. The way to provide the world with dollars is to buy stuff from the world. You get stuff and they get dollars. And then that fuels the dollar global reserve currency. Indeed, if Donald Trump got his wish, which he won't, so I'm not too worried, of getting rid of the trade deficits in the United States, that is, every dollar that we spend to buy foreign goods is then used to buy American goods. If that equates and we get a trade balance, then no dollars circulating around to facilitate dollar as a reserve currency. So it's actually the case. It's actually the case that a trade deficit is a sign of strength, not of weakness. It's a sign that people want to hold your currency, that people believe in your economy. Not a sign of weakness. opposite. As with most things that Trump says about economics, the opposite is true. This is from Don Boudreau's letter to the editor. He writes, informed people know what Trump doesn't, namely, that these trade deficits are both a sign and a source of U.S. economy's relative strength. The fact that Trump simultaneously demands an end to U.S. trade deficits and that foreigners continue to use the dollar as a reserve currency only testifies to his deep economic ignorance. When it comes to economics, I agree with Don Boudreau, and I don't know for everything, but probably almost everything. All right, so that is candidate number one, Donald Trump, the one who's looks like he's more likely to win, although again it's a toss-up. The one who is on the rise right now in the polls. And Kamala, Trump is trying to give out candy everywhere he goes. The latest one, I don't know if you heard this a couple of days ago, he said that if he got elected, he would make interest rates on car loans tax deductible. Interest on car loans tax deductible. Anything to get you to take out a loan and to spend your money. I'm cool with that. I mean, please take away the $1 million limit on mortgages. Please make all interest deductible. If the economy was being run just for me, those would all be really good. But from an economic perspective, yeah, what we need is more deductibles. What we need is more incentives for people to take on debt. I mean, again, Trump is an economic moron. Kamala is also looking to hand out candy. Her deficit right now is with black men. As we said before, black men have shifted to supporting Donald Trump. But I mean, not in big numbers, but enough to, in a place like Georgia and potentially Michigan, to make a difference. So Kamala is out there trying to get black men to vote for her. And in order to do that, she has launched an opportunity agenda for black men. Seems a little racist to me that the government is now going to have an opportunity program for black this or black that, but not anybody else. But anyway, that's the world in which we live today. So Kamala has launched Opportunity Agenda for Black Men, which will involve, among other things, 1 million loans only to black entrepreneurs. If you're not black, don't apply. I'm not sure what counts as black. They haven't defined the percent of blood or percentage of his genetic code that has to be attributed to black ancestors and what level of pigmentation counts. But by some standard that Kamala's administration will determine in its wisdom, I am sure, entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs, as defined, will receive 1 million loans. Many of those loans will be forgivable, fully forgivable, $20,000 loans. It's also the case, by the way, that that I don't know. There's something, I haven't read the details of this, but there's something in it that is going to protect cryptocurrency investments made by black entrepreneurs, but nobody else, which is weird on so many different levels. I don't know what protect those investments actually means, and which cryptocurrencies. And this is at the same time, and the same Democrats that are basically engaged in a crusade against cryptocurrency and have been for a couple of years now. How does all this fit together? It doesn't really. It's just candy, right? So she's trying to get black men to vote for her. Again, mainly in Georgia. I think Michigan, she needs them in North Carolina if she's going to win North Carolina, as unlikely as that may be, where the black population, however you want to define that, has higher rates. So Kamala's busy doing that, busy giving away goodies to her this particular group that she needs for them to vote for her. She, of course, is also appeasing her left by promising massive tax hikes and taxes on this and taxes on that and unrealized gains. I mean, the good thing about all these programs, including the Opportunity Agenda for Black Men, is it has to go through Congress. Kamala hasn't figured out what Trump has figured out, that he can make promises about things that he can control. She's making promises about things she can't control. Now, maybe that's smarter, because then she can go and say, I tried. It was Congress stopped me. I really, really wanted to have this opportunity for black men thing, but sorry, it couldn't go by. So yeah, check it out. I mean, you might, if you might want to do a 23andMe and try to figure out what percentage black you have and see if that qualifies for these new forgivable loans. In the meantime, Kamala's doing a lot of interviews as well. I mean, not very well. Have you watched her? She's not smart, and and she's not articulate, which is surprising for somebody who's a lawyer and a district attorney. She's just not capable on her feet of answering questions, of being sharp, of being interesting even. I mean, Trump is entertaining in his stupidity and in his just outrageousness and just the sheer ridiculousness of his answers. Kamala is just boring, uninteresting, unintelligent. She doesn't come out as like moronic like he does, but she's not particularly sharp and uninteresting and really, really dull. And when she gets like a little bit more of a challenging question, she meanders all over the place. And if you transcribe what she said, it means nothing. Zero, zilch. And yeah, I mean, Democrats made a huge mistake. They really should have gone through some kind of primary process. I do think the governor of California could have beaten Trump. I'm not sure Kamala can. Of course, Republicans were even worse because pretty much any Republican could beat Kamala. The only one who has a 45% to 50% chance of winning of losing is Trump. Right. So anyway, Kamala has announced, it's happening today, I think, so you can watch it today. She is being interviewed on Fox. Trump is furious, by the way. Trump is like, you bastards, why are you giving the opposition a voice? Why are you letting her be interviewed? He's angry as hell. Which, again, suggests how insecure he is. But Kamala's going to be on Fox. Brett Baer is going to interview her. It's not going to be live. It's going to be taped. So that is creating all kinds of conspiracy theories, of course. MAGA is furious. MAGA's furious. But they've kind of abandoned Fox a long time ago. It's the interview will be embarrassing. She can't answer tough questions, and Brett is pretty good. He'll ask her tough questions, and he's not a Fox deadhead. He's semi-intelligent, so he will be tough on her. I think he'd be tough on Trump if he interviewed Trump. So I'm asked what I think Kamala's age in terms of understanding economics. I think it's better than Trump's. I think it's better than Trump's. And maybe she just has better advisors. Maybe none of this reflects their individual understanding. But yeah, I mean, Trump gets the most basic concept in economics wrong. The most basic concept in economics is trade. It's the win-win nature of trade. And he doesn't get that. And that is something I think a 5-year-old could get. I think Kamala gets that. I mean, she's a statist. She's an interventionist. But she's not advocating for some principle of economics the principle of economics that Trump is fighting for has run his entire campaign around, is zero-sum or negative-sum economics. And that's true of immigration, and that's true of trade. Kamala, maybe has a 10-year-old's understanding. She gets trade, but nothing much beyond that. I don't know. She just doesn't say, the things she says about economics are not quite as stupid as Trump's. I mean, which is weird to say because, like, her policies are really, really, really horrific. Really, really, really horrific. So, Kamala's talking about gouging price. Trump is talking about price controls as well. Didn't you notice that Trump came out and said that he would actually cap interest on, what was it? He was going to cap interest on something. He was going to limit the ability of the market to charge you interest. I can't remember if it was mortgages or car loans, but it was a few weeks back. He's for price controls. He has no problem with price controls. Right? There's no problem with price controls. Reparations are not an issue of economics, right? Reparations are horrible and reprehensible, but they're not an issue of economics. But, I mean, Trump, you think Trump doesn't believe in price controls? I don't know where you live. I mean, Trump said something really dumb. I mean, if I had, I should make a list. But again, the last couple of days, Trump said something about these German auto companies. They come here and they build cars here, but they're actually we just assemble the cars here. So tens of thousands of jobs are created by German car companies in the United States. But he doesn't want them importing, bringing in anything. He wants it all here. And basically, he doesn't want German companies in the United States. He wants American-built companies to make American-built cars in America. I mean, again, he represents the Republican Party. There's certain expectations. They are supposed to be a party that has a mildly better understanding of economics than the Democrats. And he doesn't. He doesn't. Now, will we have less regulations under Trump? Yeah, a little bit less. Will we have lower taxes under Trump? Possibly. Will we have higher spending under Trump? Yes. Trump will spend more money than Kamala because he'll have nobody to oppose him in Congress. Democrats are always happy to spend money. So nobody will put a brake on his tendency to spend money. And the number one most destructive policy proposal that either candidate has made economically that would have a destructive effect on the U.S. economy, on your wealth and your standard of living is tariffs. Is tariffs. So there you go. Trump is worse for the economy than Kamala. I'll say that again. If Trump does the tariffs, and if Trump rounds up immigrants and deports them, Trump is, by vast factors, worse for the economy, in spite of taxes, in spite of regulations, worse for the economy than Kamala Harris. And most free market economists who have looked at this and evaluated it come to the same conclusions. It's very easy to deal with illegal immigrants. Make them legal. I mean, you guys insist, illegals. Oh my God, illegals. I speed, so I'm an illegal driver, so put me in jail. So they're illegals, okay. So make them legal. It's one way to solve this problem, and it's actually the way to solve the problem that is most economically sound. You know, and you might not like it. Yeah, but they broke the law. They say, okay, so, I don't know, 3-month prison sentence, and you get your citizenship. It's easy. Or, you know, I don't know, pay a fine, or go to the back of the line, or you get a million different ways in which you could penalize these illegal immigrants that you guys hate so much. But what is the big deal? Whose rights did they violate? Nobody's. They broke the law. There are lots of ways to break the law without violating rights, and they broke the law without violating rights. And you want to shoot yourself in the knee, in the hip, and in the stomach in order to because they're illegal. You're gonna make yourself suffer. You're gonna make yourself suffer. Right now, you're benefiting from them. You want to make yourself suffer from them. Bizarre. But this is again the economic ignorance and the general just people buying into the lies and distortions and stuff that Trump and Vance just constantly spew about immigrants. It's just constant. A country is not a home. A country is not a home. And they didn't break into anybody's home. If they broke into a home, they should be put in jail for breaking and entry. Absolutely. But a country is not a home. If you want a country as a home analogy, there are real problems with that. Real problems with that. It goes the other way around. It's just a silly analogy. It's just not true. It's just not true. A country is a country. It has borders. They crossed them. Yeah, illegally. It's true. They broke the law. I'm not denying that. And now the question is, what do you want to do about it? You could deport them all. You could shoot them all. You could say you broke the law. We have capital punishment and illegal immigration. Fine. You can shoot them all. But is that the rational, rights-respecting thing to do? Is that what makes sense to do? It is truly amazing to me that people who claim to be pro-freedom, people who claim to be pro-individual rights, want to take a law who's violating it, does not violate anybody's rights, and turn it into the most important thing in the world. What's the big deal? Somebody says, you're okay with an unintelligent president. I mean, what option is there, right? What are the options? You've got a moron and a almost moron or something like that. I don't know how you want to categorize them. But you've got two unintelligent presidents. You've got two idiots running for president. And I think one is more damaging than the other. I've said this from the beginning. Now, I'm not telling you to vote for Kamala. I've said from the beginning, each one of you need to decide who makes the most sense to vote for. There are all kinds of issues. I had Adam Ossoff on here, and he said, just based on the Israel issue, I cannot vote for Kamala Harris. I'm going to vote for Trump. I get that. But if you're voting economics, Trump is a disaster. The only issue on the economic, he's good on energy, he's good on regulations, he's okay on regulations, and he's okay on taxes. But the tariffs are so bad, they wipe all that out. Kamala is just a continuation of Biden, and, Biden's bad, horrible, but it's not that bad, not that horrible, and nowhere near as bad as what tariffs would do. You guys don't know what bad is. You don't know what bad could be. And, vote for whoever you want to vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I don't really care who you vote for. And I don't really care that much who wins. There's a part of me that wants Trump to win because I think, it's good for my show. I think I do better if Trump wins on this show because it'll be more interesting, entertaining. There'll be more stuff for me to comment on. There'll be more nuttiness. It might be better for Israel, which, I'm a big supporter of Israel. It'll be horrible for Ukraine. I'm a big supporter of Ukraine. But overall, Kamala will be boring, more boring and less interesting for the show. But, from my perspective, I think we are screwed no matter who becomes president. I think that if you look from an economic perspective and from the perspective of global policy, put aside Israel, I think Trump is the worst candidate. If I was voting, and I'm not, I would not vote for either one. I would put in a blank piece of paper. Blank piece of paper. Neither one of them is smart enough, honorable enough, has the character deserving of becoming a president. And I know you guys disagree, and that's fine. I would be shocked if some of you didn't. And again, I completely understand why some people, because of the way they weight things, because of the way you weight things, are going to vote one way or the other. I can understand people who are voting for Kamala, And I can understand people voting for Trump. Completely understand that. Ovid asks if I'm definitely coming to Oslo. Yeah, I mean, unless something happens. I mean, 100%, 100% is difficult just because you never know. I've just had surgery, stuff like that. But yes, I'm in Oslo, and it's a full day of events on what did I say, December 1st? Or I think it's December 1st. It's a Sunday. That Sunday. Whatever Sunday is closest to December 1st. I will be in Oslo, yes. So, yeah, join us. By then, maybe we'll know who the president is. Yes, I'm giving 2 talks. I'm giving a talk on the rise of authoritarianism in the Western world. And I'm giving a talk on aesthetics, on art. So it should be a lot of fun. And I think there's even an opera singer that's going to show up and sing for us as part of the day of festivities around my being in Oslo. Reparations are never going to happen. I mean, you can yell from the thing, Kamala Harris wants reparations, but they're never going to happen. There's no way you're going to find 60 senators to approve reparations. It's just not going to happen. So why worry about it? Tariffs are going to happen if Trump wins. Deportation of illegal immigrants is going to happen if Trump wins. And by the way, maybe some legal immigrants as well. Because he said, well, there's maybe some legal immigrants as well, ones he doesn't like, right? Like the ones in Springfield, Ohio. So it's one thing, we know it's going to happen because the president actually have the power to do it. This was my whole point earlier. Another one, yes, she has horrible policies. I mean, capital gains and unrealized gains, one of the worst ideas in all of human history economically. But she can't make it happen, and she knows she can't make it happen. She knows that. That's why she can say it. And that's why billionaires will still give her money, because if they thought she would actually pass that, if they thought that was actually real, they would not support her because it would wipe them out. Anyway. All right, let's go to some good news. I know you guys don't like good news. You like just bantering with me on Trump. We haven't done this in a while, right? And Scott's not here, but Scott has a bunch of replacements. So, has a bunch of replacements. So it keeps it fresh and interesting. Elon is a great businessman. Elon Musk, great businessman. He's a visionary. He's amazing, amazing. And in politics, once in a while, he has something good to say. But there's zero reason to believe that Elon has any concept of government, how to run the government, how to do anything good in government. And the very fact that the idea is for Elon to come in and make the government more efficient shows you how naive and really silly about politics Elon and Trump are. Because it's not about government efficiency. The problem with our government is not that it's inefficient. That's not the problem with the government. The problem with the government is it's doing things it should not do. The problem with the government is it's unlimited. It's scope, not waste and fraud. So Elon would be wasted in government. What a waste. I'd rather Elon be in SpaceX. And he'll get nothing done. The bureaucrats will run rings around him. It's not his realm. It's not his field. The issue in government is not waste. Not waste. The issue in government is scope. It's what they actually do. And the president can have some impact on that, but mostly that's Congress. But that's fine. You guys can pray for the gods of Elon. I mean, it's another reason it's going to be entertaining if Trump wins. Because Elon will be involved, and it's like watching X. It's just entertaining. I mean, he goes out there and he I'm going to stand up to the Brazilian authorities, and they're evil and they're anti-free speech, and you get a huge amount of stuff on Twitter about how Elon Musk has stood up to the Brazilians, and then quietly on the side, he's cutting a deal with them to silence the people they wanted silenced to begin with. And now X is back in Brazil, and nobody talks about it. And that's exactly the kind of stuff Elon does. He gets great publicity as a bastion of free speech globally. And when he undermines and undercuts free speech, or speech as he sees it, because it's not really a First Amendment free speech issue, speech as he sees it, nobody says a word. Nobody says a word. Because everybody knows he has a right to run his business the way he sees fit. And if he has to deal with a authoritarian government in Brazil and cut a deal with them and block some people because the government wants to, he has every right politically to do that. And it's hard to blame him because he has to run a business. He has to make money. Anyway, this is why this show is unique, right? There's no other show online that I know of where you will hear the host completely and utterly lambaste both Kamala Harris and Trump and Elon Musk and all these other things at the same time. And it's the only show where tribalism just doesn't belong. There's no tribal thinking here. I mean, you can be tribal all you want, and a number of you are being very tribal. He's playing 4D chess again. Elon's playing 4D chess, and I don't understand it. But you're being super tribal, but that's okay. You can be. This is a show in which you do not get tribalism. What you get is my objective assessment of what is actually going on in the world. My objective assessment of Trump. My objective assessment of Kamala. You can disagree with me. Fine. But what I find really, really sad and unfortunate and unpleasant is that I'm not getting educated, interesting disagreement. I'm getting talking points. I'm getting tribal talking points. I'm getting the tribe being upset at me because I said X and they've been told Y. But that's okay because, again, the chat on the Yaron Brook Show is a place in which we get to see the state of the culture, both on the left and particularly on the right, because we don't have a lot of leftists following me. I wish we did. But let me say this again. On the Yaron Brook Show, what I care about is reality. I don't care about Republicans. I don't care about Democrats. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about how it makes you feel. What I care about is facts and reality. And if you're surprised about my views on illegal immigration, then I encourage you to go back and listen to stuff I've done on illegal immigrations for 20 years now. Debates I've had on immigration, addressing illegal immigration. You can go back, listen to them, evaluate them, judge them. I've been pretty consistent about this point. This is not new. Anyway, good news. On Monday, 2 days ago, Google announced that they are partnering with a nuclear power plant manufacturer Kairos, K-A-I-R-O-S Power. And they're going to open 7 small nuclear reactors. Now, let me just say that this is the kind of stuff that is so much more important than who the frigging gets elected president. Because without nuclear power, our economy is toast. We need nuclear power, particularly if we're not going to invest heavily in natural gas power. We need nuclear power. And in order to sustain progress, advancement in the area of artificial intelligence, which I think is crucial and a huge boon for human well-being, you need a huge amount of power. I mean, the amount of power consumed by these data centers is unbelievable. And what's happened is that big tech realizes that. And they need this power to be stable, to be reliable, to be consistent. And as a consequence, they're not going to invest in solar panels. They might all be, I don't know, some of them woke leftist or whatever, but they're not going to invest, or environmentalists, they're not going to invest in solar panels. They're not going to invest in wind because they know they're unreliable, undependable. They need electricity at night and expensive. So Silicon Valley is leading the effort in the United States. Big tech, evil big tech, the big tech that you and Donald Trump and Kamala Harris all want to break up, right? Another thing that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have 100% in common is hatred of big tech and wanting to use antitrust against them. Remember, J.D. Vance loves Lena Khan. Lena Khan, one of the most evil people in government today. J.D. Vance, vice president, Republican side, is a fan of hers. Anyway, big tech is embracing nuclear power. They want to build small nuclear power plants next to their data centers because they know that's the way to get the power they need. Now, these power plants are small. These reactors, the seven reactors is one Chernobyl. Ugh, I don't know why they used a Chernobyl example in this article, but one Chernobyl. But it's unbelievably cool that we're probably going to move into a nuclear power era because of big tech. I think I mentioned a week or two ago that Microsoft cut a deal with Three Mile Island to restart their nuclear power plant. Remember 3 Mile Island? This is the nuclear power plant that everybody loved to hate. They're going to restart it so that Microsoft can build a data center close by and get its electricity from there. Now, in addition, Amazon has just bought a stake in a nuclear power developer, again, to build small nuclear power plants next to data centers to fuel the AI revolution. So this country's not going to be saved by our politicians. Unfortunately, it's not going to be saved by the corrupt intellectuals we have today. This country is going to be saved by business leaders. It's going to be saved by big business. And good for Google, good for Microsoft, good for Amazon. And I know other companies are doing the same for revitalizing a sector of the energy economy that is so important for any kind of future that we have. And that is the nuclear power energy sector. All right, as you probably know, one of the issues that it seems like everybody's talking about and concerns a lot of people, particularly on the right, I don't think the left cares because the left relishes this. But on the right, certainly a big issue is the issue of fertility and the issue of not having kids. Nobody's having kids. Birth rates are plummeting all over the West. I mean, really plummeting. The United States held out for a while, and over the last 10, 15 years, its rate has been plummeting as well. And, nobody quite understands why. There are a lot of theories. But one of the theories, which I've never bought into, but it's a theory that, particularly people all over the spectrum, across the political spectrum, buy into, is the idea that the reason for plummeting birth rates is that people just can't afford to have kids. It's just in the West, it's just become more and more expensive to live. Education's expensive, housing's expensive, moving into a bigger house where you can let the kids have a room, maybe having a backyard, all of that is just becoming more and more expensive. And people can't afford it, so they've decided either to have fewer kids, one kid, or not to have kids at all as a solution to the significant increase in costs. And, so this has been the explanation across the board why this is happening. Now, the clear examples where this is not, this is untrue, but it doesn't matter to people. Economics is the one thing that they think they have leverage off of, that they think they can correct. So one way in which to try to drive birth rates up, if you're a central planner, and you're concerned about birth rates, and you think what's causing birth rates to go down is a consequence of economics, is people don't have enough money. What do? Well, you give money to people if they have kids. You subsidize children. And economic theory tells you people respond to subsidies. The things you subsidize, you get more of. The things you tax, by the way, you get less of. So if we subsidize children, we should get more children. And so a number of countries in Europe, countries where central planning is the norm, where they think about social policy and they think, okay, we can manipulate people's behavior through taxes or through subsidies. They are trying to subsidize birth rates. They're trying to subsidize having children. By the way, this is true also. I mean, the world's worst birth rate, if this is worst in the sense of the future, is in Southeast Asia, particularly South Korea and Japan and Singapore, but also China, where they are way, replacement is 2.1 kids per I guess fertile woman, and they are at something like South Korea is like 0.65. The U.S. is at 1.6, so way under replacement, and that's okay because so many people want to see the United States population shrink. One way to have it shrink is not to have babies. Another way is to kick out all the immigrants or to stop immigrants, illegal ones and legal ones. Why not throw in the illegals as well? The United States fertility rate is 1.6, which is higher than many European countries. Europe as a whole it has a fertility rate of something below 1.6. I think maybe 1.3, something like that. The interesting thing is the United States birth rate has plummeted. So not that long ago, 1960s, U.S. birth rates were 4, close to 4, 3.5, 3.7, and they plummeted during the 60s, 70s, into the 80s. They recovered a little bit in the 90s and reached around 2, so close to replacement, and they were as high as 2 going into the Great Financial Crisis. And since the Great Financial Crisis, they've gone from 2 to 1.6. Again, this suggests to people, Great Financial Crisis, financial uncertainty, it must be a finance thing. So a number of countries have made a number of attempts to fix this. 2 in particular, and this is all from Wall Street Journal, recent Wall Street Journal article. 2 in particular, Hungary, the darling of MAGA and Christian nationalists and just national conservatives generally, and Norway, the, I guess, darling of the left. Isn't it interesting that the left and the right converge on so many different things? Anyway, both countries have spent a lot of money to subsidize children, subsidize people having children. I mean, Norway is a rich country, so it can give big subsidies, up to $150,000. Hungary is not a rich country, but people are poor there, and if you give them a little bit, that means that's very meaningful. So, this is called pronatalism. Promoting baby making is called pronatalism. Really big, again, on collectivist right, on anywhere where you have collectivism. Well, unless you're environmentalist and you want fewer babies. So primarily on the collectivist right, this is a big deal. Tucker Carlson's a huge part of this, J.D. Vance, a big part of this, Orban, and a huge fan of Orban's. Anyway, Orban has basically subsidizing and trying to encourage fertility and trying to grow the population. It's not working. It's not working. I mean, Hungary's population birth rates have stabilized. They've gone up a little bit. They kind of bottomed out at 2010 when, at around 2010, and since then they've increased a tiny bit, but then they increased through 2018, and since they've been declining over the last 6, 7, 8 years. So in spite of all the money thrown at this problem, Hungary still is only at 1.5. Up a little bit from 1.3, but again, down in recent years. Norway, on the other hand, spends even more money and subsidize it, helps out, tries to get people to have large families, and yet with every single age group, it's not working. Norway's population is still increasing, but it will start decreasing soon. Hungary's population is decreasing fast. I mean, right now, Hungary's population peaked in 1980 at 10.7 million, and today it's at 9.6 million, and it's heading towards 7.5 million by the end of the century. But part of this is emigration out. Hungarians don't want to stay in Hungary. Once Hungary becomes part of the EU, they try to go to Germany. They used to go to the UK. They want out. They want to go where there's a lot better opportunities than Orban's Hungary. Orban's Hungary, in spite of J.D. Vance and Tucker's admiration of it, is no great place to live. So there's this encouragement in both Hungary and Norway, and yet it's just not happening. People are not having kids. And if the subsidy is not working, then you have to start thinking about, well, either the subsidy is not big enough to make a difference, and that's, I guess, potentially, but then how much should the government subsidize childbearing? 0, I think, is the right answer. I mean, it's wrong to take from some and give to others. One of Freeman says Poland is doing great. Poland's doing okay, not great, but it's doing okay. Of the Catholic countries, it's doing the best, I think. France surprisingly is doing okay. France is doing better than Spain, Italy, Germany, UK. Of the Western European countries, France by far is doing the best. It's still not great, it's still below replacement. I think it's 1.7. But Poland's below replacement, it's below 2.1. So no country other than Israel is above 2.1. No developed country is above 2.1. So it's a reality that the number of people in the world is going to start shrinking, is going to start coming down in the years to come. And how long of that trend will continue, I don't know. I don't really care. It's not like humanity is going to disappear, certainly not any time frame that I care about. So why even bother with this? The only reason I bother with this is because people obsess about this, and because it determines a lot of people's policies. And it's a lot of the policies involve redistribution of wealth, and I care about redistribution of wealth. I'm against it, even if the outcome is more babies. All right. The only place where, and I've mentioned this on previous shows, where childbirth rates have not fallen in the developing world is Israel, which is interesting. Now, it'll be interesting to see if that continues after 10/7. You could argue that the rates in Israel are high because of the religious, but even if you take out the religious, so you take out all the ultra-Orthodox, the people who have lots of kids, you take all those out, and you just look at secular Jews in Israel, Jews that are either atheists or just secular, they're not super religious, above 2.1. Secular Israeli Jews are having more kids than any other country in the developed world. I've commented on this in the past. All right, finally, and we'll be talking about birth rates again because this is a big story, it keeps coming up. Finally, The Economist is at it again, spreading lies about America. I mean, it does this all the time. And, I know you guys are getting sick of it, but this is the headline of The Economist this week. It's a special report from The Economist, and it says, the American economy has left other rich countries in the dust. Over the last 20 years, the U.S. economy has outperformed every other major economy in the world. We're talking about rich countries, so European countries, but Japan, South Korea, certainly Japan. It has dramatically outperformed them on every basis that you want in terms of GDP, in terms of GDP per capita, which is the more important one. It's just grown and it's doing incredibly well. Unemployment is low, but quality of life, standard of living has gone up in America significantly more than it's gone up in other countries around the world, even when you control for the cost of living. So controlling for the cost of living, the United States is dramatically outperforming Europe. It's dramatically outperforming other rich countries. And this has been a theme over the last few years. And, recovery from COVID, Europe has stagnated out of COVID, and the U.S. has done okay. And I know, Biden is president. So in spite of Biden being president, the U.S. economy has done okay. And you say inflation. Inflation's everywhere around the world has inflation. Our inflation is not worse than other people's. So, I know it's horrible to be the bearer of good news, but the U.S. economy is actually doing quite well, and we are in many respects the envy of the world. Basically, a few reasons for that, I'd say. One is big tech. One is big tech, and generally technology, and the sheer dominance of American technology companies in the world, in the global market. Just nobody comes close. And so it's big tech. And the second is, well, tech more broadly, not just big tech. The second is oil and gas. It's fracking. It's energy. It's the fracking revolution and everything that's happened, and the evolving fracking revolution, making it more and more and more efficient and extracting more and more and more energy, and how cheap that energy has become and how easy it's become to get it. So if you add a fracking to tech, that's basically been the drivers of the U.S. economy, and a relatively flexible, regulatory environment. We're a lot less regulated in many ways than the Europeans. In other ways, we're more regulated. A vibrant entrepreneurial environment still, and those horrible lefties in Silicon Valley, and of course the frackers. That's what drives the U.S. economy. That's what led to its success. It's not, people think it's the president. If we had a good president, we'd have a great economy. No. Economies are not driven by presidents. They're not driven by Federal Reserve chiefs. They're not driven by, all the president can do is screw it up. All the Federal Reserve can do is screw it up. They can make it better, but even if they make it better, the wealth needs to be created. And therefore, the people who actually should get the credit for a good economy are never politicians. And always, 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 the people who actually produce the wealth, the people who actually make it, the entrepreneurs, the business leaders, people who hire and build and create. All right. That, my friends, is the news for Wednesday, October 16th. There's nothing on Israel, nothing new. And we will get back to it. We will get back to Israel, I'm sure, in the next couple of days, because they will be attacking Iran, and there'll be plenty to talk about. And there's plenty to talk about even now about the pressure they're under from the U.S. and all of that. But I keep talking about that. All right, guys, we haven't even made our target for Super Chat for the first hour. So, and we got a lot of people watching, 165. We made it up to 190, I think it's at one point. So please consider doing a sticker. Even if you don't agree with me, I at the very least provide some entertainment here. So consider supporting the show. with a sticker or a super chat question. We're trying to get to $500, which is the amount of money we raise for a 2-hour show. But we certainly want to be at $250 because I've already gone for an hour and 20 minutes. So I should be there. So I encourage you guys to come on in and ask a question or just do a sticker. Any amount, $2, $500, anything in between is happy to do. I noticed I'm speaking about the election, so I raised less money. I wonder why that is. All right, what else did I want to say? Yes, I want to remind you that you. Oh, here we go. Rand, thank you. Lucinda says, let's get to that super chat goal, everyone. Thank you, Lucinda. Really, really appreciate it. Rand, $20, and Lucinda, $50. That'll definitely help move us towards the goal that we need. I'll remind you we have sponsors to the show. The sponsors include the Ayn Rand Institute, which is hosting a series of conferences primarily targeted at students who really want to delve deeper into the philosophy of objectivism, but everybody's invited. One is going to be in Austin, Texas at the end of February. One will be in Berlin in March, and one will be in Brisbane, Australia in December. That's the one I'll be speaking at. I'll be speaking at the one in Brisbane. I don't think I'm speaking at the other two. And you guys should all come. You should come and participate. But those of you who are serious students of objectivism, seriously want to study objectivism, those of you really want to get into it and understand objectivism, I encourage you to come and meet some of our professors, some of our teachers, and you can get a scholarship that will cover your travel expenses and room and board and stuff and tuition. And you can apply for that scholarship at aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here, where you'll have scholarship applications. And, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun to be around a bunch of other students of objectivism, to be around the faculty, to engage in ideas, to engage in conversation. And the locations are fantastic. Europe and Berlin. I mean, it's a great city. Of course, Brisbane I've never been to, so I'm excited about going to Brisbane. And Austin, Texas. Austin is Austin. All right. Also sponsoring the show is Alex Epstein. I mentioned this yesterday. We all get in these conversations with environmentalists or leftist relatives or friends or whatever, or former friends. And they spout all these facts about the environment, about fossil fuels, about climate change. And it's hard to have at your disposal kind of the answers, what it is. And the beauty of what Alex does is he provides us with, the talking points relating to every one of the claims that the left has made around these issues. And they're always presented in easy to consume and easy to reproduce way. They're there to be used, not just to be read and enlighten you, but for you to use them in your conversations with other people. So to get that, you have to subscribe to Alex's Substack, alexepstein.substack.com. And finally, we have John Bobbin. John has a YouTube channel called Phi Life, Philife. If you're interested, as I thought all of you are, I am certainly in living a healthier life, being stronger, being fitter, and eating better, and just living a healthier life. John does a great job of integrating all the information that's out there and presenting it in digestible bites and helping guide you towards that better life, towards that better health, towards losing weight, towards improving your VO2 max, or whatever the metric you are following is. So go to Phi Life on YouTube and subscribe. I will have John on one of my members-only shows soon. Not this coming weekend, probably the weekend after that. All right, and again, all of you who don't want to do Super Chat or who are not listening live, the thousands of you who do not listen live, literally thousands of you who do not listen live, you can support the show by going to Patreon. Please consider it, value for value. Patreon and putting in Yaron Brook Show, or through the yaronbrookshow.com, which is my website /membership. There soon is a new website. It could be launching later today or tomorrow or the day after this week. We'll have a new website. I'm excited about this new website. And it'll be even easier to support the show through the website once we have it live. So please consider becoming a monthly supporter of the show. That's where the bulk of the support for the show comes from. And that's how we keep this going. If you want to ask me questions, there is a tool for doing that. And the tool for doing that is called Super Chat. And you can ask a question for $1.99. But if you're not willing to spend even $1.99 on asking a question, then you're not serious. And you're just putting stuff in the chat to distract or just to poke. If you really want to ask a question, I answer every single question on the Super Chat. Just go into the Super Chat. It's a feature right there on YouTube. Very easy to use. All these other people have figured out how to use it. And ask the question. Ask the question. All right. So let's start with our Super Chat questions, and we'll start with the questions for $50. We got 2 of them. Well, Lucinda didn't really ask a question. She just said, let's go to that Super Chat goal, everyone. Thank you, Lucinda, for motivating and inspiring by example. David, why are trade deficits okay? Don't we have to have a surplus of dollars in our economy? In World War II, many nations lacked funds because their exports fell to crucial levels. I don't even understand the question. We have as many dollars as we have in our economy. It's not true that nations lacked funds because their exports fell to critical levels. They might have lacked gold. They might have lacked dollars because they wanted dollars. But their own money, they can always print. There's no shortage of your own currency. All these countries were fiat countries during World War II. They could always print the dollars if there was somehow, I don't know what circumstance would produce this. What they lacked was a hard currency. What they lacked was gold, okay. But, and that means you have to lower the cost of your exports. But also remember, that's in the middle of a war. Trade deficits are wonderful because what they represent, what a trade deficit represents, not just okay. Trade deficits are a sign that your economy is doing well and that the world values your currency. Why? And I said this a little bit on the show, right? First of all, they're willing to sell you stuff, right? Imagine I'm in Venezuela right now, and I want to sell my goods. I want to sell my goods in Latin America or anywhere. And I want to buy goods. I want to buy stuff. I want to buy stuff from Brazil. I want to buy stuff from America. And all I've got in order to buy this stuff is Venezuelan currency. Will I be able to buy anything? No. No. Because nobody trusts the currency. It's not very usable. There's nothing I can do with it. I mean, Russia has real problems. It's having real problems. Because it wants to buy stuff in the world, and nobody wants their rubles. Nobody wants their rubles. Because the ruble is not worth anything. Inflation's very high. It might be higher tomorrow. We have no clue. And I can't take my rubles and buy something in Brazil with rubles. The only place I can use the ruble is in Russia. So the fact that people are willing to sell you stuff is because you have something valuable to give them in exchange. And what you have valuable to give them in exchange are dollars. So importing importing stuff is a sign that the world has confidence in your currency. In your currency. And is willing to take the risk of holding that currency even for a short period of time in exchange for the stuff that they are selling you. Now, what happens to that currency once it gets to the other side? Now, some people want those dollars, right? Want the dollars because they want to buy American stuff. They want to buy American music. They want to buy American games. They want to buy American Netflix. I don't know. They want to buy American stuff. So they buy American stuff. And if people didn't want to hold the dollars in them of themselves, if people had no use for these dollars other than to buy stuff from America, we'd have a trade balance. We'd buy whatever we bought, we'd send the dollars overseas, and then all those dollars would flow back buying American goods. And we'd be in balance. But people love the dollar so much, and they trust the U.S. economy so much, that they don't just want to buy American goods with those dollars. They actually want to invest in American companies, our stock market. They want to invest in American land. They want to invest, this is the biggest market, in American bonds, government bonds, corporate bonds. They need those dollars to do that. So they take those dollars. They don't buy stuff from America. They invest in America by buying stocks and bonds and real estate and other things, which means they really value America. They really value American economy because they think all those things are good investments. A portion of the dollars, they don't buy American goods and they don't invest in America. A portion of the dollars they can also use, like if I buy something from Mexico and I send my dollars to a Mexican, and the Mexican now has dollars, he can now take those dollars and he can buy something from Brazil or something from France or something from China. Because lo and behold, the dollar is the only currency that you can actually go around the world and pretty much everywhere they will take it. So it's a sign that people are willing to trade in the dollar. That's a huge benefit. Now, I want to say one more thing about this. Think about it this way. Every single one of us has a massive trade deficit with our grocery store. I do, anyway. Like, I go to the grocery store, I buy a bunch of goods, and no grocery store ever has sponsored the Yaron Brook Show. They don't invite me to go and give speeches. They don't spend their money on me. So I have a massive trade deficit with the grocery store. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a fantastic thing. The grocery store gets to specialize in doing groceries. I don't have to specialize in something that the grocery store wants. I just have to have enough money to be able to spend at the grocery store. And then the grocery store can use those dollars because I have a powerful currency, because I have a currency that's usable, and they can buy whatever goods they want. And I get the groceries. So I got what I wanted, they got what they wanted, everybody's happy. So a trade deficit is a sign that people are willing to trade with you, that they're getting value from you, and that they're willing to hold your currency. So it's always a good sign, not a bad sign. Now, you could probably imagine a situation where it's a bad sign. But look, the reality is that if your currency sucks, nobody will buy your stuff. Nobody will sell to you. They won't sell to you. They just won't sell to you. So trade deficits are good, certainly in the case of the United States, but they're good more broadly. They are a signal, a sign the people want to sell to you and that you have the wealth to buy from them. The fact that I have a trade deficit with the grocery store is a sign that I'm wealthy enough to buy groceries. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, I have to earn income somewhere. So America has to be able to produce wealth in order to be able to afford to buy stuff from China. But the fact that we're buying stuff from China over and over and over again for decades suggests that we're producing wealth somewhere, somehow. Maybe you can't see it. Maybe you don't know how to identify it, but it's there. And that's true of any country. All right, Silvanos, thank you for the show. Wishing you a speedy recovery. I appreciate that. Thank you, Silvanos. Richard, have you seen What's Next with Bill Gates on Netflix? The episode, Can You Be Too Rich? Panders to Altruism. Gates was pathetic, boasting of how much of his money he's giving away. He barely touched on the benefits. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, as soon as you get to something like that, he becomes altruism dominates. They can't afford it. They can't afford it. Kamala's not going to ban fracking, just like Biden didn't ban fracking. There's more fracking going on today than there was under Trump. More fracking in America today than there was under Trump. More energy being produced in America than there was under Trump. We are at the highest levels of energy production in American history. So there's just no reason to think she's going to ban fracking. She's not particularly good for energy, but she's not horrible in a sense of. So again, you got to be real. You got to look at reality and actually judge reality, not judge the propaganda, not judge the chattering classes. Actually judge reality. Robert says, happy birthday to me. No, to you. But he says to me, no. Anyway, happy birthday, Robert. And to anyone else who's got a birthday today on this or this month or something this year, be good to yourselves out there. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for celebrating your birthday by contributing to the Yaron Brook Show. Annie, would Trump with a GOP House and Senate be better or worse than Harris with a Democratic House and Senate? Oh, God. Oh, God. I mean, both those outcomes are so horrible that they're hard to contemplate. Luckily, we still need 60 votes in the Senate to pass any significant bill. But who would be worse? Hard to tell. Generally, I just think Trump is, Trump is a game changer in terms of presidents and puts the country on a path that is not long-term sustainable of the dramatic decline of freedom. So generally, I don't want Trump in the White House. So what do I want as an alternative? A Republican House and Senate, or at least one of those. But I don't know in terms of policy which one would be worse. They're both awful. Ian says, did you listen to Trump at the Economic Club of Chicago? It's insane that he's getting 40% plus of the vote. Well, he's getting way up there in the 40%. Yeah, I mean, he's awful. I know. He's just, I said, he's an economic moron. He's got the understanding of economics of a 5-year-old. And that's just reality. You can say, oh, but Kamala's a 3-year-old. Fine, we can have that debate. But you've got to first acknowledge that his understanding of economics is of a 5-year-old. And once you understand that, you can have a conversation about who's better, who's worse. But what stuns me is the number of people who claim to be for freedom and understand economics and everything who think Trump is right on economics. Michael, do you see Naftali Bennet on Jordan Peterson? Did you see Naftali Bennet on Jordan Peterson? Good discussion. I think he would make a decent prime minister. No, I didn't see it. As you probably figured out by now by asking me a lot of these questions, is I don't listen to a lot of other people's podcasts. I just don't have the time. I don't know. If I listen, I want to listen to books. I want to listen to in-depth analysis. And I want to listen to Jordan Peterson on Lex. I want to listen to Naftali Bennet on Jordan Peterson. But there's like a million of these that I want to listen to. And I just don't have the bandwidth. I wish I had. I wish I did. But, you know, just prepping for the show eats up most of that bandwidth for me. And then I want to read and have a life. Eyal says, can Israel really destroy Iran's nuclear program? I mean, it's a good question. I'm not sure. It can certainly set it back dramatically. It can certainly destroy pieces of it, right? Because it's not one thing. But can it get all of it, given that some of it is very, very deep inside a mountain? I don't think so. And I don't know, in other words. I don't know. I mean, a lot of claims are that you need U.S.-like bunker-busting bombs. Now, of course, Israel could use a nuke. That would do it, right? They could use a nuke on one of the nuclear facilities, and particularly if those are isolated in the middle of the nowhere, you could minimize casualties and just use the nuke to. So they could, if they were willing to use a nuke. But I don't know with conventional weapons and what they have available to them if they can do that. I don't know what their ballistic missiles, what kind of warhead they carry. But again, I don't think it's a bunker busting. And I know that their airplanes do not carry bombs big enough. Now, what they showed in Beirut is you can do 40, 80 bombs in one location, one spot. That has a lot of impact. I don't know in this case, but certainly they can set it back years, if not, probably not decades, but probably years, certainly months. and they can send a message. Mary Eileen, regardless of who wins the election, the occupant of the White House will continue to be an inarticulate and unintelligible. I agree completely. That is the only objective assessment of the election. Thanks, David. See ya. David's going. Lucinda says, I don't think Trump's economics have much to do with his knowledge, understanding of economics. He doesn't care to understand it. He just uses economic concepts to appeal to his nationalistic tribe. Yeah, no, I think it's deeper than that because, I mean, if you read like his Art of a Deal, just his whole approach to life. His whole approach to life is an approach that rejects the idea of win-win. It rejects the idea of trade as mutually beneficial. And if you don't get that right, you're not going to get anything in economics right. So I don't think that's just... I think the immigration stuff, I don't think he cares that much, although he is a bit of a xenophobe, but I don't think he cares that much. I think he that's more his pandering. I think a lot of his other stuff in economics is pandering, but I think his issue about trade goes beyond pandering. By the way, Donald Trump in the 1980s, you can find video of this, Donald Trump in the 1980s was convinced Japan was going to eat our lunch, was a massive threat to U.S., economically, much more developed than the U.S., and he was worried about the trade deficit with Japan. That didn't work out quite the way he thought it did. So this goes back way before he started running for president. Oyvind, I've answered that. Daniel, tell us the story of when you went to Beirut. God, I've told this story. I've told this story many times. I'll tell a quick version of it. 1982, Israel had just occupied Beirut, or at least part of Beirut. They never occupied all of Beirut. They occupied part of Beirut. And we were planning to enter into West Beirut, Southwest Beirut, the areas that Israel is now, partially the areas where Israel is bombing right now. Not exactly, but somewhat. And there were a lot of tunnels down there where Yasser Arafat and his PLO terrorists were hiding. And I was in military intelligence at the time, and we had a source, a spy, somebody who was willing to give us information about the tunnels. And, basically I was told by my commanding officer, you and I tomorrow are driving to Beirut to interrogate this guy and get the tunnels and get the info and so we can help plan the invasion. So literally, early in the morning, we threw a couple of AK-47s, it was definitely AK-47s, into the back of the Jeep, took a military Jeep, threw a couple of AK-47s into the back of the Jeep, and drove. I drove. He sat next to me. I drove like a maniac from Tel Aviv, through Haifa, through the border post with Lebanon, and just kept on going through Tzol and Sidon, which are some of the cities being bombed these days, all the way up to Beirut. In Beirut, up the windy roads to where the Israeli command center overlooking Beirut was. It was in this beautiful villa complex overlooking Beirut, the city. And I mean, it was crazy, really. It was insane. We were driving in hostile territory, just the two of us in a Jeep. And, you know, we, with a map, no GPS in those days. So a map, I've never been to Beirut before in my life. So all the windy little roads, I mean, pretty nutty, really crazy. And we got there, and we went, and we were told we were going to interrogate this guy, and we changed into civilian clothes, and because the interrogation was going to be in civilian, not in military, and we're walking towards the interrogation room where we're going to interrogate them, and Arik Sharon, who was the defense minister, shows up, literally shows up, and he says, "No, I'm interrogating him. We don't need you. Don't need you. Go away." Literally. So we went away, and we thought, okay, we'll spend the night here. We'll drive back tomorrow, and we'll see Beirut's lights at night. I mean, we saw the city in the daytime, and we get a phone call from a base in Tel Aviv, and says, "Look, we're getting the info from the interrogation. We need you here because we're basically doing an all-nighter, planning the invasion of West Beirut, and we need you. We need both of you here." And they did. I mean, and so we basically ran. I mean, this is war, so you take these things seriously. So we basically ran. I remember I kept my jeans on. Those days I used to wear jeans, and I just put it on a military shirt. Had to be in military uniform if you're driving military. And we just started driving south to Israel, and night fell. So here we are in the middle of hostile territory, driving through population centers, Beirut, Tzol, Sidon, and remote places, right, on the coast. The two of us in a Jeep in the middle of the night. Like, I mean, this is like we could have died like that. I mean, it would have taken nothing to kill us. I mean, we know how to use AK-47s, but I wouldn't count on us being very proficient at it. And you weren't allowed in those days to drive in Lebanon without a military convoy. Like, this was an Israeli military Jeep just driving. We'd get to our checkpoints, and the guys would say, "Where's your convoy? You're not allowed to be here. What are you doing?" And we'd say, Oh, no, they're coming up behind. We just drove ahead. They're right behind us. Don't worry about it. And they let us through. I don't know why they let us through, but they did let us through. And we basically drove from Beirut back to Tel Aviv, worked the rest of whatever was left of the night and into the morning. And this was me driving, doing all the driving. How long of a drive was it? I'm guessing it's a 4 to 5 hour drive. So I drove 8 to 10 hours that day, like a maniac. In Lebanon. Now, that was my second time in Lebanon. I'd been there before in southern Lebanon, where they're bombing now and where Israeli forces are now, checking out a lot of the intelligence that we had, Israel had already occupied it, that we had seen. There were, I think, 4 of us in a Jeep, and we toured around southern Lebanon just to see kind of, this is the stuff we've seen. So anyway, that's my Beirut story. I have other Israeli military stories that you might find interesting. So, but that's one. Enric, what do you think of the Capitalist Party potential future candidates? I mean, I think the potential. I mean, what does that mean? What is the chances of ever getting anybody elected? In my lifetime, 0. Do I think it's a good project? Sure. I think manifesting objectivism in every realm is a good thing. Modeling what objectivism looks like in politics is a good thing. Having a program, having candidates, they have to be good, and they have to be articulate, and they have to be consistent. is a good thing. So I think modeling objectivism in every realm is good. So I think having a capitalist party with a capitalist agenda, an objectivist capitalist agenda, is fantastic. And I wish them luck, and hopefully they'll get somebody elected before I die. That would be fun. All right. Listener says, to be fair, it's difficult thinking of well thought out disagreements with you all too often when you're so excellent on the vast majority of issues. Hope you're having a good day, Yaron. Thank you, listener. No need to disagree with me. You can ask questions about things that you might just not be sure about or not know. I mean, we're all limited in our knowledge. So a question does not mean disagreement. But I appreciate it, and thank you. It is, I mean, if I can toot my own horn for a minute, there is nobody on the internet today that has a regular show that can cover the array of topics that I can cover, from history to economics to current events to politics to ethics to philosophy. Nobody. I'm the only one. And then do it from an objectivist perspective. But think about just the scope of the material you get here. Talk about religion. Talk about the world of ideas in history. It's, I'm impressed by myself. Matt, hey, Ron, are you into baseball? Let's go Mets. Sometimes I'm into baseball. I haven't been into baseball for a while, probably a decade. I'm into baseball when the Red Sox have a good team. And I don't know, I've lost touch with baseball. I might get back into it when I have time. Baseball is time consuming. That's the problem with baseball. Right now, the sport of choice for me is basketball, both because the Celtics have a phenomenal team and because it's just a fast-paced game. I don't have to devote a huge amount of time to it. Baseball's too slow. Philosophy to work. Maribbens. I was late to work this morning. Must be those damn Americans that got to take out our roads. They're going to take our roads. Roads. I don't get it, but I don't need to get it. It was from Maribbens, not from me. Wesley, if Trump became an objectivist tomorrow, how would he behave? Would he stop running for president? Shoot himself? I don't know. I mean, it's such an impossibility truly an impossibility, because being an objectivist is not just changing your politics, it's changing everything about who you are, changing your soul. And you can't change your soul on a dime. You can't. Trump tomorrow could decide to become a better human being and in that process become an objectivist. But you can't change your soul on a dime. And if he did, he would drop out of politics, drop out of running for president, and go find himself, go figure out and make amends for all the horror he's done in people's lives. Something like that. Christian, what do you make of Trump's argument? He gives an example of a phone call with Macron that the threat to raise tariffs on European goods helps to avoid tariffs on Americans' exports. It's just BS, i.e., he makes stuff up. And the reality is that if you increase tariffs, other people increase tariffs. And the reality is also that global tariffs in China, tariffs in Europe, tariffs in every important part of the world have been systematically going down for 80 years. And there is no big push in Europe before Trump. There was no big push in Europe to raise tariffs on America. I mean, Trump was the first guy to raise the issue of raising tariffs in any major economy in the world. He made it an issue. So no, I think he's got causation upside down, and I think he's lying about it. Larry, here's to wishing you a speedy recovery. Thank you, Larry. Really appreciate it. And I have got the short story on top of the agenda. Will happen this month. Nefel says, I am pro people who think themselves as Jews, whether for collectivistic reasons or self-defense reasons. Do you see anything wrong with this quote? Yeah. I'm not pro people who think of themselves as Jews. I'm not. Some of them are good people, some of them are bad people. I don't treat people as tribes. I don't treat people as collectives. I'm not pro people who think of themselves as Jews. Some Jews are good, some Jews are bad. And generally, if you view yourself as a Jew for collectivistic reasons, that's not good. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. So, I'm pro freedom. I'm pro good, rational people. I'm pro success. A lot of Jews happen to be successful. A lot of Jews happen to be rational. A lot of Jews happen to be, advocate for good things. So I'm pro them, but I'm not pro and indeed, you will find very few people in the world who has antagonistic and anti, for example, ultra-Orthodox Jews. I can't stand them. I'm horrified by them. I find them to be barbaric. And so, no. It's a quote from me, then it's badly stated. I don't agree with the quote from me. I say stuff every day for 2-3 hours in lots of different contexts. And I'm sure you can find a lot of quotes where if you take that sentence and, yeah, it's wrong. That quote is wrong. I'm pro-productive people. I'm pro-good people. And most Jews are productive, but the kind of Jews who are, for example, ultra-Orthodox, no matter where they live, I'm not pro them at all, in any respect. That's just one example of one group of Jews I'm against. So if I said that, I apologize. I was wrong. I take it back. Jason, I appreciate your optimism on the dollar, but as a retail owner in a foreign country, always convert your dollars into local currency at a reputable place or use your card. If you use your card to take out cash, decline their conversion rate and go with the default U.S. bank rates. Yes, I go with the U.S. bank rates, absolutely. But the reality is, it's not me being optimistic about the dollar. It's the world giving you information. The reality, the absolute reality is that the world wants dollars and that they sit on dollars and that they use dollars to trade because they value dollars. And maybe the best indication of all is just the quantity of dollars that they spend buying U.S. government bonds. Me and you don't trust the U.S. government, but foreigners do. Foreigners do. Daniel, here's a tip for your History of the Middle East lectures, which is excellent. I plan to rewatch them. Oh, thank you. Yeah, definitely watch my History of the Middle East lectures. I think they're really good. You'll learn a lot. Most of us don't know that much about the history, never mind about a history of that part of the world. Watch the History of the Middle East. You can also watch History of Islamic Totalitarianism, that is History of Islamism, of Radical Islam, which I think you'll also find interesting. Whoops, I don't want that. All right, Nefel says, I appreciate your correction. You correcting yourself, it felt heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, I know that I say things that I don't know which things, because I wouldn't say them if I knew, but in the flow of, since I do these shows, not written out, not detailed prep, I'm sure I say things that in the sentence, if you take them out, are just not true and don't represent what I stand for. So please feel free to correct me. I am very thankful to people who correct me about real errors that I make. Christian says, during my first travel to Israel many years ago, I took a taxi and I thought they drive like maniacs. How does their style of driving compare to an average Israeli taxi driver? Who is they? So I'm not sure what we're comparing it to. Here's the thing about Israel. Israelis drive like maniacs. They're crazy drivers. They drive fast. They're aggressive, super aggressive, very, very aggressive, particularly in Tel Aviv. Very aggressive taxi drivers. Italians drive like maniacs. Unbelievably aggressive. You know what the difference between an Israeli driver and an Italian driver? Italians know how to drive. Like, Italians drive like maniacs and they're super aggressive and they don't get into accidents. Israelis drive like maniacs and they get and aggressive and they get into accidents. And it's scary. It's scary. Now, I used to be an aggressive driver. I've noticed. I really have noticed. Since I came to Puerto Rico, I've become a lot less aggressive. Partially because the roads here are so bad, but partially because, I don't know, I'm just not, I'm less aggressive. I guess I'm calmer or whatever. But I am a lot less aggressive than I used to be. When I was aggressive, I think I was a pretty decent driver because I've never been in an accident that I caused. And yeah, but I'm an Israeli driver. If you drove with me back then, you'd consider me like an Israeli taxi driver. I think it was Amy Peikoff, the first time she got in a car with me and we drove. She said, "Oh my God, you drive like a New York taxi driver." She was really afraid. She was not happy with me. All right, guys. Thank you. Really appreciate the support. We're $40 short of our goal for the second hour. Maybe somebody can squeeze in a $40, sticker before we leave, or $220 or something. But I appreciate the support, and I will see you tonight, 7 p.m. Greg Salmieri. It's going to be fascinating. You can ask Greg who he's voting for. Some of you will find it interesting. You can ask Greg about politics. But more importantly, ask him about philosophical questions, right? So come on over, and 7 p.m., same place. I look forward to seeing you guys then. Bye, everybody.